Good morning. Foggy little Monday morning south of Portland, Oregon, and just headed to my second stop here. When I watched the video this morning, I got my mind going a little bit, and it was about the taxi cab drivers of New York City. And I know this seems like a not connected issue to trucking, which, I mean, it kind of is, but it sort of got my mind turning that sort of way. And they were talking about how, alright, I guess that's still playing. YouTube's gonna be mad. I gotta shut that off. Anyways, so basically it was talking about how they have to buy, or they had to buy, these medallions to operate a cab, I'm assuming a cab company in New York City. And they were saying that they bought their medallions for like 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. And now what's happened with Uber has been that they just moved in and started undercutting the business. And essentially, these guys can't even pay for their medallions, which I equate to what an authority is in trucking. And for those of you that don't know, an authority that you have in trucking is basically an MC number that you get from the government. And I believe it's a US DOT number too, or something like that. I don't know nothing about nothing. I'm a little yearling. I've just done a little bit of listening to what other people have to say on YouTube, mostly actually, and basically anyone can go and get an authority. That's the deal with trucking, is anyone and their mother can just go, they can just go set up an authority, and like you basically just have to get the numbers and you're in business. And then of course you have to figure out, you know, your truck, your insurance, all that good stuff, accounts, whatever. But I'm pretty sure that it did not always used to be that way. And I always heard guys talking about, and this is on YouTube, they were always talking about like the deregulation of trucking, which happened, I believe it was like the late 70s, early 80s or something like that. And before that had happened, or was it the 60s? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I wasn't even there. I don't know nothing about nothing. But prior to that, it seemed like it was sort of similar to that medallion setup, about how you had to buy an authority, and there were only so many authorities to give out. So if you wanted an authority, you had to go and find a guy who was looking to get rid of his numbers, and probably had to pay a very good amount of money to get, you know, his numbers from him, or her, I guess. There we go. And basically, what that did was it kept the freight to the point where people, you know, you still had to pay for your authority. There weren't so many trucking companies that were out there, and so they were able to control rates a whole lot better. And I mean, this is going to be sort of a workaround little conversation here that we got going on, but basically they could control rates a whole lot better. And apparently guys back then got paid real well, and it was a really reasonable job to have. And then, of course, when deregulation happened, it didn't cost anything to get your authority. And so now there are so many people out here that have their own authority that it is absolutely ridiculous. You see every type of truck have any type of company, and I mean, if you try to keep track of all these companies that are out there, it would just be it's not doable, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there's a list somewhere, but I mean, I'm just talking about like going out the street and looking around. And of course, there's big companies and there's small companies. There's single owner-operator companies that have their own authority. So you're only going to see it once, and that's the only time it's going to happen. It's just that one truck. But the thing with that sort of clicked in my mind is that now it brings the free market into play, which is something that all sorts of people love to talk about. They're like, oh, you know, if you just, you know, made everything, you know, you don't have to have like some type of super business license and credentials and all this to back yourself up. You know, what do they want to say? They say that basically the markets will like level themselves out at a good spot, and there will probably be a better job done and more prosperous, you know, all this sort of stuff. And for those of y'all that are in the industry today, we're able to look back over a good amount of history that happened in the trucking industry from when it was, you know, a good job. You probably didn't have to rush if you didn't want to. You probably didn't have to, you know, do all this crazy stuff to, you know, make a living. And then, you know, you're talking about like the late 70s, early 80s, into the 90s, where guys ran like wild hogs, and they didn't care about nothing. They just ran the truck, I'm sure not 24 hours a day, and I mean, something like that, I'm sure they got used to doing it. It wasn't an issue, but the rest of the country had a very big issue with that, because I'm sure, you know, accidents were more likely to happen and all sorts of stuff like that. So, you know, that's not good for business. We don't want that. And so they, you know, put laws into place that were changing hours of service so that you weren't able to drive as long as... What is going on here? As long as you used to be able to. I think someone just blew up their car or something like that, like the engine or something. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to pay attention to that guy real close. But, now where the heck was I? Come on now. Jesus. Oh no. That thing distracted me real good. Shit. Where was I? Y'all remember? You probably do. Where was I? Something about the authority and how it just gets pumped out of control. Oh yeah, they're running like wild hogs, and then we got all this hours of service stuff going on. And now it's gotten to the point where you need to have electronic logs in your truck, which basically means that you can't hardly fake anything on these logs. And every truck, I believe it's after 1999, has to have an electronic log in it, because I guess before that it was all mechanical engines, and you know, you can't track a mechanical engine that well. You know, you have to have something electrical going on in there, and that's what a lot of the trucks after that were. They were, you know, electronically run. So that has been where we've gotten to today. Now, I mean, if the, you know, the running like wild hogs thing, if that hadn't happened, would we be in a better place today? Would we be able to, you know, drive longer? Would we be able to, you know, extend our day further? All that sort of stuff. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. And I mean, I haven't been in the industry long enough, so maybe they did try something like that, and it just didn't work. So, okay. But basically, this is where my conversation gets around to, is I was thinking about making a video about my reset that I just got done. I did it yesterday and wrapped it up in time for this morning, so I have a fresh 70-hour clock for this week. And I was going to make a video that was basically, you know, what does what I did last week have to do with what I'm doing today? And the correct answer to that question is nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with that, because what you did last week, like let's just say what I did last week Monday, I don't remember where I was last week Monday. I have no idea. You know, if I had to take a guess, it'd probably be like Iowa or something like that. I have no idea where I slept, what I had on, nothing. I don't remember nothing. So basically, to say that, you know, if I can't remember what I had going on that day, like how does it still affect me, you know, multiple days later? But then this whole medallion thing with the New York drivers, the cab drivers, that got me thinking on a whole different track. And this is kind of a track that I've been thinking on for a while, is it's basically a cool factor to have, you know, a truck that does not have electronic logs in it. And, you know, I run paper logs, I ran 20 hours yesterday, and, you know, I gotta make it back to wherever the heck tomorrow, and yada yada yada. I'll answer that in a second. But shut that up. But basically, it got me around thinking, why do we view it as cool to work longer hours than anyone else? And this is something that is real in the trucking industry, because you'll hear, you know, if you talk to enough people, they'll ask you, you know, like, oh, where are you coming from and where are you going to? And it's like, yada yada yada. It's like, oh, eventually you get to the point where it's like, oh, how many miles did you drive? Or like, how many miles is the average, or whatever the heck. And if you say like, oh, you know, I got like, you know, 2,600 miles last week, and they're like, oh man, you had a messed up week. You know, I got 3,300 miles last week. And it's like, oh man, that's pretty good. And if you break it down, the guy with the 2,600 mile week, he still probably had, you know, a 60 something hour week. Now that guy with the 3,300 mile week, it's a guarantee that he had an 80 to 90 hour work week. Just because you got 70 hours on your clock doesn't mean that you're working 70 hours and then it's done. You can do, you know, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do, and as long as you're sitting in this seat, in my opinion, you're still at work. You don't have to be actually doing anything, you know. But, you know, if you think about that, 80 to 90 hours a week to make a real good living out here, like that's a good week. That's the week that you want, is that week where you don't got time to breathe, where everything is so tight that you don't got time for nothing. That's the whole goal in this industry, is to be in a rush, and you have to be able to, you know, correctly control the amount of rushing that you're doing, and, you know, control your want and your will to rush so that you don't do anything stupid. And if you go ahead and dig a little deeper, how many hours is normal to work a week? Let's all answer at the same time here. 40 hours. Very good, boys and girls. 40 hours a week is normal. That's a normal amount of time to work every week. So the truckers in America, at least, are, you know, if they're completely by the book, and you know, they're not doing anything crazy, they're working, you know, 70, 80 hours a week. And I mean, I'm talking like as long as you're sitting in the seat, you're still at work, sort of a thing, because you're waiting for stuff to happen, and you can't. Oh, that's a weird setup. Somebody just passed me with a double. They were hauling doubles, but it was like it was an RGN trailer attached to an RGN trailer, a double setup. I had never seen that before. Anyways, so why? I don't know. The answer is not something that I can properly say, but I do think that it is absolutely absurd that in the industry, if you work 80 to 90 hours a week and you're gone from home that whole time and you are busting your rear end, you know, it's where YouTube's already mad at me, but if you're busting your rear end that whole time, 80 to 90 hours a week, barely got time to, you know, eat a proper meal, how is it at the end of the week you come away with, you know, $800 to $1,100? Because if you do that math, and I mean, some people ain't even get paid that good. I'm talking about, you know, someone similar to my situation. That would be, you know, what I would expect is that much money, somewhere around there. But if you do the math, you're making like $10 an hour, $12 an hour. And I made, at my last job, I think I was making like $14 an hour or something like that, but I did not make as much money. And it's all about those hours. It's absolutely insane. I just can't believe that this is set up like that. But the problem with that also is that if you reduced the amount of hours that people could work per week, like let's say you drop it down to, and we're just going hypothetical here, let's say you drop this thing down to 40 hours a week, you can only work 40 hours in the week, and then you got to take another 34-hour reset or something like that. Those 40 hours will go past in 3 days. I'm not kidding. They'll go past real fast, and then you're going to have to do a reset. Now, how fast do you think the country is going to move if you do something like that? It's going to be slower than molasses, all right? And even guys like me who are only accustomed to doing 11-hour days, and we're not even talking about the guys that ran paper logs for, you know, 10, 20 years, which they're used to, you know, more than likely more than that, let's be honest. They're more than likely used to, you know, a 15-hour driving day, 18-hour driving day, something like that. I don't even know. You know, I just wasn't around. I could probably ask my grandpa about that. I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why it's cool to work so hard. I don't know. It's a strange thing. There's not really, I don't know. There's no good answer that I'm gonna come up with for sure. So I guess this is all hypothetical. It's just something for y'all to think about. You know? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So yeah, I'm gonna get the heck out of here, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.